WFYI podcasts are made possible by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering experiences like indulging in grub at Nick's English Hut, taking a stroll along Kirkwood Avenue, feeling the history and magic of Assembly Hall, and providing the chance to feel like a college kid again. Plan your trip at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's June 2nd, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, an Indiana law requiring stricter age verification for adult websites will not take effect as planned this week. A significant change comes to a Medicaid program. The Indianapolis Public Schools Board appoints a new member. And Indiana's largest electric utility is asking state regulators to approve almost $500 million in rate increases, and consumers spoke against the idea at a public hearing.
As a grandmother, I beg you to consider the impacts of your decisions.
Those stories coming up. But first, new federal funding will help realize transit and infrastructure improvements on the east side of Indianapolis. WFYI's Jill Sheridan has more.
The RAISE grant, that stands for Rebuilding America's Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, provides nearly $22 million for projects along East Washington Street where Indigo's Blue Line is planned. The money will help Indigo reconfigure roadways, add dedicated bus lanes, and improve pedestrian infrastructure along the planned bus route. The Blue Line will be Indianapolis' third bus rapid transit line with service from Cumberland to the airport. The east side stretch of Washington Street has historically been dangerous for drivers and pedestrians. The competitive RAISE grant program invests more than $1.5 billion a year in infrastructure projects and targets communities that have been underserved. I'm Jill Sheridan.
An Indiana law requiring stricter age verification for adult websites will not take effect July 1st. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports a federal judge halted the law Friday, ruling it was likely unconstitutional.
The law says websites on which at least 1/3 of their images and videos are material harmful to minors must verify their customers' ages with a mobile driver's license or government ID, which Indiana doesn't provide, or through a third-party age verification service. Federal Judge Richard Young says that requirement likely violates the First Amendment. In his ruling, Young says, quote, "The Attorney General has not submitted any evidence suggesting age verification would prohibit a single minor from viewing harmful materials." Young says a better solution is filtering and blocking technology. Also, Young writes that the law's arbitrary use of the 1/3 standard makes it difficult for even adults to view constitutionally protected content. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
The Family and Social Services Administration is implementing a significant change to an important Medicaid program for medically complex children. This is in response to last year's $1 billion Medicaid forecasting error. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports family caregivers say they've lost trust in the agency based on how it's handling this process.
As of July 1st, family caregivers of medically complex children will no longer be able to provide attendant care. This means they have to choose between someone else stepping in as an attendant or transitioning to a different program. Many families say the new program doesn't have enough support. Erica Hunt is a mother and family caregiver of a medically complex child. She says being able to provide attendant care as a family caregiver gave her and her family a chance to breathe after years of navigating complex care without support.
Now we're going really backwards. And it's going to be, again, adapting, which we'll figure that out, right? We always do. But it's just so frustrating and it's discouraging that we have to really add this extra hardship on to what we're already dealing with every day.
Hunt says she's lost trust in FSSA in the state because of a lack of communication and transparency. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
The Indianapolis Public Schools Board voted last week to appoint Lisa Riolo to the Indianapolis Public Library Board of Trustees. Riello is a retired chair of the Physical Therapy Department of IUPUI and has been a volunteer at the Central Library for more than 15 years. Riello replaced former board member Stephen Lane, who resigned from the board earlier this spring at a meeting. Riello's term starts immediately and ends at the end of 2027. And for our final story today, Indiana's largest electric utility is asking state regulators to approve almost $500 million in new rate increases. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Violet Cumber-Weiland reports consumers expressed their disdain for the proposal during a hearing Thursday.
If approved, the company's request to state utility regulators would raise the average resident's bill by about $27 a month. Fairfield Township board member Susan Schechter is a Duke customer who has several children and grandchildren in the state. She says she worries that Duke Energy is still relying on fossil fuels for over 90% of its power.
As a grandmother, I beg you to consider the impacts of your decisions on our children and grandchildren. Duke is Indiana's largest utility and the furthest behind in transitioning to renewable energy.
Schechter and others testifying expressed concerns over how these price hikes would decrease investment in energy efficiency and solar power. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Cumber-Weiland.
Hoosiers can submit written or online comments on the rate increases through July 5th. A final order on the case is not expected until early next year. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes, Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.
WFYI podcasts are made possible by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering experiences like indulging in grub at Nick's English Hut, taking a stroll along Kirkwood Avenue, feeling the history and magic of Assembly Hall, and providing the chance to feel like a college kid again. Plan your trip at visitbloomington.com.